Hello, right. Today I'm going to talk about maybe a slightly unexpected topic, and that is just how do you get to Russia? Well, I'm going to tell you about how you can do that and also my most recent experience doing so. So, as you know, as of February 2022, all Russian airlines are banned from flying in EU and American airspace, basically the entire West, and vice versa. And so you may wonder, well, how is it possible to even go to Russia? Well, obviously, you can enter from most non EU countries by airplane. The most common layover for a Westerner, so if you're in the United States, you want to go to Russia by airplane, you'd probably book from one of the major American cities like Chicago or New York, and then you would fly to Istanbul, Turkey, and then you would fly into Moscow. But like I said, you can fly into Russia from actually a pretty wide range of countries, just not in Europe or the United States. Now, since February 2022, I have flown into Russia three times, twice from Georgia and once from Turkey. However, for Christmas this year, I decided to try something different, and this is something that I'm highly unlikely to ever do again. And this was to cross by land into Estonia and from there fly to Kansas City. And this plan did save a pretty sizable amount of money because flights from Moscow to Kansas City via Turkey or the UAE were close to $2,500. And this plan, the flight from Estonia to Kansas City was about 1,500, which was actually higher than I expected. And then another couple hundred for trains and hotels. So it did come out to saving, uh, I did save quite, 20-25% by choosing this land bus to Estonia and then flying routes. And I want to do this for two reasons. Well, one is the money saved, and the second one was that I sort of just needed to check for myself if this was a viable option for crossing in and out of Russia, because I have to leave the country every 6 months with my type of visa. And so I've been making visa runs by flying, and this was just getting too expensive. And so I wanted to test this land crossing. And now you may wonder why I'm using the word test or try, and it's because I basically couldn't get any straight information online. Reddit gave contradictory information. I went to some of the well-known bus providers, and some of their websites seemed legit. But then if you go to click buy tickets, it gave you like a page not found. And so after quite a bit of research, I found the company Lux Express, and this did appear to be legitimate. Everything seemed to be in order and working, although it was still extremely difficult to get information about what to expect. And so I kind of viewed this whole trip as a kind of show up and see what happens. And so I had a buddy who did this via Latvia, and he had an unbelievably bad experience. And so I was desperately hoping to avoid this, but I did know that I can't hide from this. I have to leave Russia eventually. I have to re-enter eventually. So just rip the band-aid off, right? And so my trip started off where I live in Moscow, but I first had to ride what's called a suburban train for about 30 minutes to the largest train station in Moscow, which is Leningradsky Vokzal. So I go to my first train, 30 minutes to Leningradsky Vokzal. Then from Leningradsky Vokzal, I need to ride to St. Petersburg. Now, this train is almost 8 hours long. It leaves Moscow at 10 p.m. and arrives in St. Petersburg at close to 6 a.m. The cost, actually don't remember, but it was, I think, around $40 to $50. And I accidentally bought the top bunk of a sleeper cabin, and it was basically impossible to sleep. I am 6'6", and so the bed was nowhere near big enough, which I was expecting. But making matters worse is that they kept the light on the entire night. I was in the top bunk with a bright light shining directly into my face the entire evening. I had to use a blanket to cover my face. I got almost no sleep. I then got off the train in St. Petersburg and walked to a bus station. Now, I boarded that bus at around 7 a.m. And I will say the whole process of getting on the train, and then getting off, and then getting out of the bus station platform area, it was way, way simpler than I'd expected. I'm from the Midwest, and so I'm just still using. I've been on long trains before, but it's still a very, very unfamiliar process to me. How it works? They check your ticket once you get on, in some case, but not before. There's just a few things. There's a learning curve. It's like flying for the first time. as an adult, right? There are procedures and protocols that you're just not familiar with, right? And so the bus ride then takes about 2.5 hours. Remember, this is from St. Petersburg to the Russian city of Ivangorod, which I'm half guessing on the pronunciation of because I only saw it in writing, but it's either okay. I'm pretty sure it's Ivangorod. Okay, the bus ride takes 2.5 hours. I get to Ivangorod in Russia. I got off the bus and walked about 1 kilometer to a land border crossing point. Now, the land border crossing point ended up being by far the easiest part of my journey. The whole process from arriving to leaving was about 90 minutes. I didn't have any issues on either the Russian or Estonian side. I crossed into the city of Narva, Estonia, which was a lot less interesting than I had expected. It just kind of looked like Russia. I don't know what I just thought you would cross in and immediately be kind of like this Hansel and Gretel. Every house would be made of gingerbread, and it would just be kind of like a fairy tale. But it just kind of looked like a provincial city in Russia. So then I'm in Narva. I'm riding to Tallinn. This is another 2 hours and change. We get to the bus stop in Tallinn. I then get off the bus stop and walk to a hotel that was right next to the airport. I then check into my hotel. Again, it's about $50. 50 comes up a lot in this story for some reason, but the hotel was about $50. I was extremely tired still from the train sleep, and so I wanted to just go to bed. I didn't have time or energy to explore the old town or chat with any interesting locals. So I just went to a shopping mall nearby, ate McDonald's, and then tried to sleep. And I only slept about 4 hours because the bed was uncomfortable and I was quite jet lagged. Okay, so I wake up and then I walk to the airport. Okay, everything goes good. I now have 3 flights. These 3 flights last a total of about 12 hours. I'm flying from Tallinn to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Chicago, and Chicago to Kansas City. It is over 12 hours altogether. I got basically no sleep on any of the flights, maybe a couple of minutes on one. My mom then picked me up from the Kansas City airport, and then I spent about 10, 11 days in Kansas City, and these days were extremely unremarkable. Essentially, nothing of note happened during this time in Kansas City. I then made the exact same journey in reverse. So now I have my 3 flights, exact same route: Kansas City, Chicago, Chicago, Frankfurt, Frankfurt, Tallinn, Tallinn, St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, Moscow. So I walk to, okay, so I'm in Kansas City. This is December 26th, 11 a.m. I fly to Chicago. Cool. I fly to Frankfurt. Sucked. I hate those long flights. Again, I'm 6'6". There's no leg room. It's horrible. I can't sleep. And then I fly to Tallinn. All good. I then check into the same hotel, pay the money, get another very bad night of sleep, and then I wake up to go to I wake up and then walk to the bus station. Now we ride about 3 hours to the bus station. I'm sorry, to the land crossing from the bus station, and it took about 3 hours to go back to Narva. I don't know why it was so much longer in this direction. It was about 3 hours. And right when we pulled up to the border crossing, I knew that I was in for a pretty unpleasant experience because there was a huge line of people. And I saw this line and thought, best case scenario, 2 hours. Worst case scenario, 4 hours. Well, 6 hours later, I finally get inside to this land crossing customs building. Like I said, I was in line for 6 hours. It's December, it's Christmas time in Estonia. So it's cold and it was very, very wet. It even rained, not the whole time. I'm not going to exaggerate, but it was rainy. Water was splashing around. You couldn't really sit. And to add insult to injury, people were just cutting in line. I remember around the 5 hour mark, I'm ready to basically just to live in Narva. Just say this is my new home. Whatever I have in my suitcase, this is now all of my possessions. I'll write to my wife and say I'm just gonna stay in Narva forever. And I was thinking about this around the 5 hour mark, and then I see a woman she gets dropped off by some taxi, and she just walks straight to the front of the line. just shamelessly. She sees a friend of hers at the front, she just joins her, and I guess she was able to skip my entire waiting experience somehow. And I was really stunned at how few people seemed to care about this, because these people around me are also getting cut, and nobody seems to care. I saw one woman confront a cutter, or at least a couple of cutters, and they all had the same, like, "Oh, my friend was here," or "I was here, but I left for lunch. Now I came back." And there's no enforcement mechanism. There are Estonian police officers nearby. They don't give a shit, and so it was just chaos. And it was just an absolutely horrible experience. I then I'm inside the building. I go through customs and border checks. Why are you coming to Russia? Uh, Questions like that, but not very serious. And then I go through it, no issues. And then I'm walking about another kilometer back to the bus station on the Russian side. And I get there, and now it's about 5 p.m. And I get to my bus station, the bus stop, and in Ivangorod, and the bus is gone. There's another bus. He tells me my bus had already left. And so he says his bus leaves around 7 p.m. So it would have meant waiting even more time on a non-moving bus to then ride the bus to the train station, where I would then have a train ride. Okay, well, so my train ride from St. Petersburg to Moscow leaves at 9 p.m. I am now at this bus stop on the Ivangorod side. It's like between 5 and 6 p.m. And so I need to hurry. I need to get to the train station because we're about 2.5 hours from St. Petersburg still. And so I decided, you know what? If I miss my train from St. Petersburg to Moscow, I'll have to buy a new ticket. So I may as well just bite the bullet, pay for a taxi right here, right now to the train station to avoid missing my train. I order a taxi. It was about 5,000 rubles or $50. 50 is kind of my magic number for this story. And it's going to take about 2 hours by taxi. It's going to cost about $50, which seems like a good deal to me. And so he pulls up, and all good to go. Luggage into the trunk. I had two suitcases in my backpack. I get into the car, and he says to me, "Hey, you're paying by card, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, how about you cancel the order in the app?" But this is the Index Taxi, which is similar to Uber. He says, "Cancel the order in the app and just transfer me the money." And this is the second time this has happened to me in Russia. I take taxis every single day. It's only ever happened to me twice. And the first time this happened to me, I just told the guy I didn't know how to do it, which was believable because I'm a foreigner. It would make sense a foreigner wouldn't know how to transfer money by phone to people. This time, I was I was tired. I wasn't thinking correctly, and I told the guy. So the text driver says, "Send me the money. Cancel the order. Send me the money." I should have said, "I don't know how to do that," or my company ordered the taxi for me, and I don't even have internet. Right? That's what I should have said. Instead, I just said I want the guarantee of nothing bad will happen. I want to have a third party, because you're a stranger. And so he then just goes to the trunk, takes all of my stuff out, just sets it onto the wet and snowy Estonian road. And to make matters worse, he takes an extremely long time canceling the order, which I guess he has to call Yandex and then get permission to cancel it. And so because he can't cancel the order on time, I can't order another taxi because the app still thinks that I'm waiting to leave with this guy. And so I realize I'm not going to make the train from Petersburg to Moscow. And so I get back onto the bus. I tell the bus guy, like, this taxi driver screwed me over. Like, I will just have to ride with you guys. So I then ride. I wait. First, I have to wait for actually a pretty long time. Wait like an hour or so on a bus. It's not moving. We then ride for 2.5 hours to St. Petersburg. I then take my suitcases. I then walk to the train station in St. Petersburg, and I get ready for an 8-hour train ride from St. Petersburg to Moscow. It was an absolutely horrible experience. Again, this time I was in the bottom bunk. Still got almost no sleep, even though I'm getting like compound negative sleep interest. I'm getting negative my sleep debt. I'm getting compound sleep debt interest. I felt horrible. And so I'm on the bus. I'm on the train now. Sorry, I can't remember where I'm at this point. I'm on the train. I've barely slept in like 2 days. And I mean barely slept. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't function at all without good sleep. If I get 6 hours sleep, I'm useless. 4 hours over the course of 2 days, I can't remember my name. I can't do anything. And yet I have to keep speaking Russian to strangers. and sometimes kind of intense situations. So it is such a mind-blowingly uncomfortable experience. And so I'm on the train, 8 hours, not sleeping. I'm jet lagged. I feel horrible. My stomach felt. I don't even. There's no words in human language to explain the way that my stomach felt at that moment. It was a combination of being hungry, full. It was just. It was cramped. It was horrible. And so we're riding in St. Petersburg, and then the thing comes on. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be arriving in 30 minutes in Moscow. And so I get up, I start checking my coat pockets, and I realize my passport is not where I left it. And so I begin frantically checking my coat pockets. I am checking my suitcase. I'm checking my backpack. I was extremely confident that I had left my passport in my coat pocket. I spent about 25 minutes looking for it. I was sleeping in this cabin with one other stranger. Now, this guy didn't seem like a bad person, but I did notice he was awake during the night, and he knew I was a foreigner. So to me, it was not inconceivable that he would wake up, realize that he had an opportunity to. I think American passports in the black market probably go for close to $10,000. He may have thought, I can take this guy's passport. There are no cameras in here. I can wake up, take this guy's passport. He might not even notice it until, he's gotten off the train. Remember, there's no guarantee I'm even going to check to have my passport when I get off the train because there's nobody stamps your passport when you get off of a train. So it's not something you would actually instinctively know to look for. My wallet, I have a much lower chance of leaving without. My passport, you could actually, especially if it's a place like my backpack, you could steal it, and then the guy won't notice it's gone until several hours later, and then there's basically no way of catching you because there are too many other places you've been, there are too many people you've been with. And so I'm thinking about all this, and so I actually go to the girl who's working she's my flight attendant for the train, and I say to her like, hey, I just explained to her the situation. I said, I'm not saying the guy stole it, but at what point can I demand that he be searched or something? What are my rights in this situation? I mean, I have a pretty strong case, I think, because I got on. You looked at my passport when I boarded the train. You checked my ticket. You checked my passport after I got on. And so I know I have it on here, and now it's gone. And so I continued looking and looking. It took about 25 minutes. And then I noticed my passport was in a part of my backpack that I'm extremely confident it was not in. And I didn't remember putting it there. I might have been delirious, but I don't know why I would have moved my passport to that location. Okay, but it was back there. My theory is that I was either delirious and didn't realize it, or that once the guy did see my passport, and once he realized I was going to once he saw me get up and leave to talk to somebody, he may have thought that it was too risky and then decided to quickly return it. Thought that was also possible because 1 minute I'm looking for it in my backpack, it's not there. I leave, I come back, I'm looking other places, and then I do find it. So a little bit suspicious. Not saying he did it, but I think it is possible that is what happened. Okay, so then I arrive in Moscow, and I still have another 30-minute train ride. I ride the train for 30 minutes to where I live in Moscow. I get out, I then walk about 10 to 15 minutes to my apartment. I walk in, I kiss my wife, I play with my son, and then I went straight to bed. It was miserable. Now, I will say, what have I learned from this? Well, I'm definitely not going to do this route ever again. To me, it's better to go home once every 2 years, pay a more expensive ticket with fewer, rather than do this maybe once a year. Because when you're not doing it once, you're doing it twice for the same trip, right? I think in the future I will just have a layover in Istanbul, but for visa runs, I am going to keep doing this. And there are a couple of things I've learned from this that maybe you can benefit from. I am going to only take the fastest possible trains, no matter what time they leave, from Moscow to St. Petersburg. I've accepted that I will not sleep, and so buying a cheaper night sleeper thing doesn't really make any sense. Better just to pay more money for the super fast one that leaves at maybe during the day. So I'll do that, so that way I'm not just lying in an uncomfortable cot with a bright light in my eyes for 6 hours while I can't sleep. And then I will cross into Narva, and I will stay at the closest, cheapest hostel I can to that land border crossing. Now, the land border crossing works from 7 a.m. to I think 11 p.m. And so I'm going to check into my hostel that's as close as humanly possible to the border. I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to walk to the very, very front of the line, and nobody will cut me. I will ensure that it does not happen. I'll get there early. I'll be the first person they let in. And I think in that case, I could make these types of trips more, uh, well, just more efficient and less mind blowingly miserable.